So I'll go through some of the challenges associated with this in-depth analysis of pattern molecular space. So the goal, of course, is to support project team. So quick introduction, and also what the need, and what is the current state in a typical pharmaceutical company, and also what is the desirable outcome. And finally, that is some kind of a pipe dream. Say, if we are in a better place, what kind of implications this will for us. So everybody knows that exemplified molecules are the molecules chemists synthesized and then claiming the patent. Of course, the broadest claim will be represented by very complicated tree structures, as amply demonstrated by quite a few slides by the previous speaker, and then followed by core and a thing. And fortunately, there are technologies, even though that the size of this space is very large, but you could actually have commercial solutions to perform tests, to perform searches. And in order to do that, one step is critical. You need to translate the text information into the machine-readable format. It's called encoding, and to enhance, to enable the computer assisted search. Already, I should show this example. I bypassed that already. Essentially, ultimately, it's this thing. As of now, there are two major players in this field, Cass and also Thomson Reuters. They are the two dominant content providers. In order to achieve that kind of position at any given moment, I was told by a Thomson Reuters senior manager, 100 to 500 analysts at any given moment are busy encoding patterns on an ongoing basis. So that means it requires a delay time. That's number one. And second, they spend a lot of money to do that. That translates to the cost of subscription to all of us. Of course, that in-depth analysis is very important. Everybody knows that already. I just put one pair of examples. Drug molecules from two companies differ by just a little bit. Move the nitrogen from this location to that location. This probably is not that important sort of changes. So one thing actually for this second company is great. Actually, that's kowtow to the power of good analysis, identify opportunity, and have a quick follow-up, very quick. And then it also mentioned for the previous company, that means if there's anything you can help to help this process to defend the patent better, that'd be great. So most of the questions asked by project chemists are, one is a broad scope, that means comprehensive pack. Is my lead molecule IP address, IP position is good? So in that case, you do need to have a comprehensive content. So Cass and also Thomson Reuters will be sort of definitely require their sort of service. But there's also a different kind of request from the project team. So when there is a competitor's patent published, each project usually have one or two medicinal chemists follow the patent literature carefully. So as soon as patent published, they read that thing and say, no problem, set aside. But once in a while, a black swan will show up. Oh, so close to the project lead series. They really want to know the patent in depth. All the explicit exemplified molecule need to be extracted. Assay data, SAR needs to be extracted, and also the patent marquee. Not only that, but also they want to enumerate something and do the in-depth comparison and to make sure that the current project lead still have a position. Otherwise, they need to abandon that thing as soon as possible because it's been claimed by some other people already. So think about the cost. Time is a factor. Usually it takes the content vendor about a month to release the electronic version of the content. So if the project has to wait a month to wait for that content so that they can do in-depth analysis, that's a lot of, it's a huge sort of opportunity cost. So that's a sort of defensive side, but all sort of understand other people's patent point of view. But then also that is when a project team is preparing a new patent, they need to draft that thing, and like Ballpark mentioned that, constantly check the quality of the claim and also to see if it's consistent, essentially say whether the Marcouche claim cover all my examples of my molecules, and also try to see if there's any holes. So imagine that if the previous example is the Pfizer Viagra patent, if they actually can have the recent tool, right, the most up-to-date tool, and do an in-depth analysis, they probably will realize there are some holes. And it's also easy to actually to fill those holes. If they recognize that thing and I think that is important, they will dedicate chemistry resource to make that compound, to fill that hole. So it strengthens the IP position. So you can see that this type of need are in-depth required. So as of now, the current state is, as I mentioned already, when the patent office publish something, and then it will go through this encoding process so that either Cass or Thomson Reuters will release this. There is a time and money involved. And then usually that Cass and Thomson Reuters, there is a expert search tool. Those tools has been around for a while. It's a workhorse for the last 15 to 20 years. But then it is an expert tool. So you need an in-house expert searcher or the search expert to work with that tool. It's not for the faint of the heart. That means chemists, they never have access to that tool. So from the chemist point of view, you have to work with the interpreter in between to access that thing. There's also a issue involved with that. And further, as the companies are downsizing, of course, the impact on the searcher as well. At least for the company I'm working for, number of searchers start to disappear without rehiring and also reorganization. So there's a pressure for the chemist to do themselves, for the patent lawyer to do this stuff themselves. But it's very hard to work with the expert tool. So already mentioned that the time delay is the thing. And then the second that is without direct access to the search tool, all this in-depth analysis is just academic exercise. It's not going to happen. So the future state would be that if we could actually selectively download at any moment, as soon as the patent is published, the PDB file or XML file, and encode that thing and put it in the internal patent store, and have some tool such as Instant JChem or Plexus, for example, enable the project team to do search on the fly. Would that be nice? So essentially, that's actually what Arpad and Daniel mentioned. So the workflow, of course, is that it's very likely on a single project, I said 10 to 100 per project, not more. Most of this patent may not, probably is too far away from the lead series you're working right now. There may not be a need for this detailed encoding. Only a few of them will need. And then, as I said, the automated part plus the manual part in combination. So essentially, a curator ensures high quality. And I've already mentioned that already. I'll skip that thing. And also, there's a trend that the content providers start to expose their content through the API. At least Thomson Reuters is doing that. And we actually are working with them to test out this API. So hopefully that is for the new patents, you can go through this route. But if Merck wants to build an internal collection of Merck's own compound, a patent Marcouche, we could actually download theirs and then through the curation, making sure that we are also satisfied with quality and put it inside so that we can always compare our patent proposal, proposal draft with Merck's own patent collection to make sure that they're not invalidate each other. So those are I'll skip that already. So for the larger community, essentially we're talking about scientists and the patent attorney and the patent office and also content provider. So if we do have this wonderful curation tool plus Marcouche search engine, which imagine one day is available to everyone, what would happen? So essentially that the project team will actually create the content, play with it, draft it, and try to break it themselves, find holes, and make compounds to fill those holes, and then work with patent lawyer. The patent lawyer could also use the same thing, utilize the Marcouche composer or something like that. Actually, our lawyers ask for that utility. Essentially, help him to actually have an initial draft of the Marcouche structure. Because Now the number of lawyers also decreases. So his job is getting busier, and he wants some help as well. So hopefully that after several rounds of iteration, you have electronic version of high quality stuff, which matches the patent draft, the text document, and sent to the patent office. Of course, patent office also has the same search engine and probably access to comprehensive sort of data content. It will check it, and there's actually existing sort of a plague in this communities as when you file the patent, you claim as big as possible, utilize your Marcuse structure. Unfortunately, the patent office cannot push back. They don't have a way to say you claim too much. So with this sort of enabling technology, the patent office could push back, say, no, you claim too much. Why don't you be sensible? And then after that, and then push back, and we have a reasonable sort of claim. And then the patent office could also mandate that, well, you need to submit the electronic version as well, so that once that's available, both the document get published as well as the electronic component could be downloadable or could be shared with the content provider. So that is nice, because imagine all those 100 to 500 for each of those people, each of those vendors. Suddenly they don't have to have that many people. Of course, they will always have someone to say, grab the electronic version of something, they will review that. They probably do some tweaking to match to serve their own favorite search engines. But the process is much simpler, can you imagine? So with that, actually, it could actually also make this publication much faster. So instead of 4 weeks, right, maybe by that time, it could be a week or it could be a few days. So it would be nice. So that's actually, if we could actually have a sort of a nirvana of this domain, that would be where I like to be. So the bottom line is that it's a win-win situation for many players. I already mentioned about the scientists, the patent lawyers, and for the publishing company, they actually benefit from that as well, and the user. So the whole thing is that to make the process streamlined, efficient, and reduce the cost, so that the whole community, our community, and also the whole society benefit. We want the pharmaceutical industry to be a thriving sector instead of dying. That would be. But of course, the objections are always expected. I'm sure that I like to hear a lot from this audience as well. Too naive, it's just a pipe dream. It's really one of the things which are interesting. That this is from lawyers and some of the need for obfuscation is very high. Essentially, you want to hide things, make it as hard as possible. Why do I want to help my competitors? But think about this. It's not about individual company. It's the community. So all of this actually make the whole sector less efficient. The sector is dying. It's not an individual company. Every company suffers from layoff. So how can we sort of compete in a more fair manner instead of competing by hiding information, right? And the third one is that Cass and also Thomson Reuters continue to be dominant player. They have all those Marcuse content in their legacy format, and maybe it's too sort of a cost or time inhibited to transform to the new environment. But that's okay, because the new engine provided by ChemAxon could coexist with the old existing engines by Cass and Thomson Reuters. If they don't have to convert, they don't have to convert. But all the new content could be in a new format and then shared by the community. That is sort of a pipe dream. So hopefully that is with this very short presentation, you see that in-depth, there is actually strong need from the project team to have in-depth analysis. It doesn't happen that often, but once it happens, the project team is so worried, sick, they want to do it as soon as possible. Secondly, that is ChemAxon's suite of tools, as Arpa and Daniel already showed amply, is well positioned as a potential solution for the community. So first of all, it's a newer and a better search engine. Many people probably will stand by that, but then our patent lawyers actually review my slide, they put a question mark. Let's just be, he wants more data to prove that it's better. It's a content neutral, that means format. If indeed in the future there's a way to think about it, it's almost like SDA file, but for the patent space. If there's some kind of agreement, there is a basic set. And each search engine probably will add bells and whistles on top of that, but the basic stuff are the same. So that it could easily port between search engines. And the particular sort of encoding tool demonstrated by ARP already. Imagine that the analysts, there's about 200 to 1,000 analysts within CAS and Thomson Reuters, if they could use a more modern encoding system, make their life much easier. So with that, I feel that pharma companies do have a role to play. We can actually encourage this thing, and in the same time, ChemAxon has a role to, by various type of education, promotion, and also probably even lower the financial barrier to enter into this field, so that many small companies could also get engaged and then change the sort of landscape once for all. So with that, actually, I thank these collaborators from ChemAxon again. And there are two sort of project medicinal chemists. They are instrumental in review the tool, have early access of the tool, and try to show it to the chemist, and then patent for you. Thank you so much.
We have time for a few questions. Anybody have a question?
Yes.
Hi.
I can talk really loud too.
I'm very confident in that.
So this is really great, but it seems to me that the problem here is really more societal than scientific, right? Because you've got to figure out where the incentive is. Is there more of an incentive for me to see what you're doing, or for me to protect and obfuscate what I have? And ultimately, it would be great if all of this was mandated by the patent office, but if you've ever talked to those guys, they're the least forward-looking group of people anywhere in the world.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, their mindset is still in the 1950s. So how do you think we can make this happen?
So inertia is a big thing. And one of the things that start small, started with baby steps, like project team right now needs that thing. And if we do have this very user-friendly curation tool, and the project team utilize that, and essentially derive value out of that quickly, that is number one. So each individual company benefit from that. And the second is that we could actually, once quite a few companies adopt to that thing, a big pharma could approach CAS of the world or Thomson Reuters and say, well, we think that it's time to have a newer process, a newer engine. Would you willing to change? Would you willing to take your legacy system, legacy content, and port it into a new format? I believe that ChemAxon and Thomson Reuters collaborate on that thing. They actually ported the legacy system to the format which a new engine can search. So it has been done before, even though there's still some debate what is some of the pros and cons of that approach. But conceptually, it is possible. So ultimately, that is once the tool is available, once the FDA, not FDA, once the USPTO recognizes it's so easy to do, that it says, okay, it's no longer a burden on individual sort of patent submitter anymore. You should do it. Just like the structure biology, right? When you submit a paper, you have to deposit a structure, crystal structure into PDB in order for it to be published. So hopefully that once the infrastructure is ready, tools are ready.
Right, if you get to the point where the patent office is using this, then everybody's going to do it. Because it's going to be sort of like lead scope in the FDA, right? You go and you use the lead scope models regardless of whether they're any good, because the FDA is using them.
So it is a big thing, but it has a great positive impact on the society.
I have a question, and also to Don. What I see in what you illustrated is there's almost two different use cases. One for patent individuals, in many cases where they're looking for new use cases or scope of use, and many times they're looking as generalized as possible, whereas on the lead discovery, you're looking as specific as possible and really trying to find the boundaries of where your IP is. And I'm curious whether the existing content, because that's what I've heard is sometimes the existing content that's out there has generalized homology groups that don't give you the specific boundary definitions, the exact chemistry that you need for what you're doing on lead discovery. Can you comment on that?
That's where, for example, if we do have, yes, ARPA actually also, you mentioned that we have the sort of published patent, but then the electronic encoding itself, only the vendor has that. And whether the encoding information actually represents the patent itself, it's still debatable. That means you have to do the search to review the content, to read what's really inside, to make that judgment. Because none of us actually have access to that actual data content. Nobody knows. So you could actually only after do some search, it should have been there, but it's not there. Why? Oh, this should not be there. Only after you read the actual patent claim and then the search result. After that, there's some inconsistency. But once we have a sort of open system, everybody can see the content, see the actually encoded electronic version. So that's the reason, say, we want to download something, let's say download the Merck's, Merck has a bunch of patents, right? We want to download the Makuch content from the vendors, review those guys, polish those guys, and ensure that we're happy with that, and use that content internally. So yeah.
It sounds like you almost need to recurate the existing patent data that's out there in order to make this effective because of the issues that you already see.
So not every project needs that kind of in-depth. So in a sense, it has to be selective because it is a demand on the project team's time and effort.
Just a quick question for the ChemAxon, really not for Zhengwei. All these tools are really nice, particularly that curator thing. But now I think it becomes a cost issue. The TR thing from you guys behind it is also very expensive. So it comes to a point where I don't know if any company can really afford these nice things anymore. But would it be nice you can provide, say if we adopt IGC as somewhat quote-unquote official platform, and offering this or sell this as plugins. So those curators platform is very much amicable with IGC. That's the only way I personally felt you pay the contents, right? If you want to own doing the fancy stuff like Zhengwei described, you needed to have those things inside in-house. Sure. Then you add in the plugin. If we buy all these, another application is, I don't know how you manage it and costly and realistically. But those are all good work. I really like Curator.
So our anticipation, and I think this goes to what RP and also a little bit what Zhengwei has said, is that for the lead discussion or lead discovery group, many times they're working with a limited number of patents, maybe 6 to 10. And the Chem Curator is really designed to allow you to pull out that content and work with that content explicitly. It's not designed to recreate the whole space of what, for example, TR and CAS have done, but does allow you in a very chemically accurate fashion pull out that content that your lead discovery groups need for what they're doing on the project side. And obviously from the standpoint of ChemAxon, we can do this in an economical fashion from a tool provider. But then you yourselves are actually creating that content, and the idea is that if it's a limited number of patents that you're doing as a project, that this can be used as a tool to actually do that extraction and manage it locally. And so we're not trying to recreate all the existing content, and your organization still may want TR content separate from that or CAS subscription, especially on the IP side, but really from the standpoint of really having a very strong chemically accurate tool, that's what ChemAxon does.
So I can add to what Doug's point is that is, yes, when you have new toys to play with, you always have considered cost, right? One of the things actually project team realized that is, think about how much a project team will burn in a single month, and how much they've already invested in some series, and there is a danger to lose that series. They want to make it sure. Those are huge costs. So that's the reason actually about like 2 months ago, one project team said, where is the trial license? Is it still available? He wants to try it to see if it's valuable. And they say, maybe we don't have time to try it anymore. We want to approach ChemAxon and have the license signed immediately. So they're in such urgent sort of need. So essentially that cost seems to be large at this moment. And hopefully that is if ChemAxon also come out with a very good pricing model to encourage the community, urge it in that direction, that'll be better.